Hey everyone, welcome to the Search Bar and a very special welcome to any new listeners or viewers out there. Really excited to get started here on today's episode. I always like to start off by asking, has your marketing gone bitter or sour? Sit back and enjoy top shelf strategies from the Search Bar, where we're serving up insights for your digital marketing to work successfully. I am your host, Eric Ritter, SEO sommelier and CEO of Digital Neighbor, a friendly neighborhood marketing and SEO company based right here in Tampa, Florida. For today's episode, I have the honor of being joined by Mitch Allen, the Senior Vice President of Economic Development at Tampa Bay Economic Development Council, to discuss how Tampa is evolving into a thriving market. Mitch, welcome and thank you for being on a podcast.
Thanks, Eric.
Really excited to get started here. We always like to start off with your roots here, Mitch. So just curious if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Tempe, Arizona, where Arizona State University is home to.
Go Sun Devils, right?
Yep, go Sun Devils. I ended up actually going to school there. I got a degree in communications, graduated in 2008, and then kind of stumbled into the workforce at a very uneventful time in the world as everything was kind of crashing.
Right.
The housing crisis. So
yeah, we were in a recession then and everything, right? So I'm sure it was really big in Florida, really big in Arizona as well. So going from Arizona to Florida to Tampa, what really drew you to Tampa Bay?
Yeah, so I had I spent basically most of my career in the Phoenix market working for an organization called the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. I moved my way up the ladder, and towards the end, I was managing the business development team there. And then I realized that I really needed an opportunity to grow, and it probably wasn't going to happen in Phoenix. And so I took a position in Richmond, Virginia, managing the business development team there for the Greater Richmond Partnership. Was there for about 2 years and really loved the market, had a chance to work on some really unique projects there. And then really what happened was I had a recruiter reach out to me. Tampa wasn't really on my radar. And started the process. And it really took, I want to say about 8 weeks, probably 9 or 10 interviews. And then the last interview was me coming out. They flew me out. I did a presentation to a handful of board members and executive committee members. And from there, I did a tour of the community and met with some of my coworkers and then had dinner. And I think I was offered the job 3 or 4 days later. And so really fell in love with Tampa. I was happy that getting to tour the community. And one of the big things that ended up happening was my flight got delayed. And so got canceled, then delayed. And finally I just said, I'm not going to wait. I don't want to get home at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Right. I'd rather just, fly out the next morning. So I booked a hotel room and went out and got a chance to kind of experience the nightlife of Tampa. And that's really what kind of solidified it for me.
Nice. So then you fell in love with Tampa Bay, right? So the nightlife of Tampa Bay, I should say.
At least for those 2 days. I mean, there's obviously a lot more, here, whether you're in Hillsborough County or Pinellas County, there's a lot to offer. And I love being by the water. And, it's funny, living in Virginia, it was great. The springs, the falls were beautiful. The winters, I was not prepared for. I mean, being this kid from Phoenix, being out there, I didn't have the right jackets. I didn't have the little scrapey thing to get the ice off, and so it was interesting. And seasonal depression is a real thing.
Yeah.
And so coming back into the sun where it's bright and sunny, almost, all day, is really helped my morale and my emotional well-being as well.
That's awesome. Well, we're very lucky to have you here in Tampa. Glad you're here. So talking about Tampa, you already kind of hinted about, we know your title is with economic development. So just curious, what got you interested and how did you get into economic development? And maybe you can also talk about what even is economic development.
Yeah, so I'll hit that question first. So what is economic development? The easiest way I can describe it is, if you have a plant and you have soil, right? The plant being the business, the soil being the community. Economic development is like that miracle grow, right? The additive that helps, push that company forward to help it grow and really, derive its roots in the community. And so it's kind of helping companies understand what their full potential is, and then helping them understand what the community has to offer from a workforce standpoint, from an incentive standpoint, from taxation, and even, how to get their building, operational for, getting the certificate of occupancy, the permitting aspect, the rezoning, whatever it may be. So
nice.
And then as far as, how I got into economic development, so when I graduated, right before I graduated, so I graduated in the fall of 2008, I had to either write like a giant paper, which I was like, no, or go to do an internship. And, because the housing crisis took place, there weren't really a lot of jobs that were paying. And so I ended up taking an internship at the Arizona Department of Commerce, now the Arizona Commerce Authority, in rural economic development. And I had a great boss who just sent me to meetings and in her place. And really, I just started to love it. And I ended up going to an association meeting called the Arizona Association of Economic Development. And from there, it just drew me in. And I said, how do I become a part of this? And they said, well, we're looking for young student involvement. And they paired me with a mentor. And, he had me in our first meeting. He's like, the next time we meet, put your 5-year plan together. And I put economic development at the top, not knowing really what that meant. And then from there, he had me interview a bunch of folks in the field, and I brought my resume to each one. And then all of a sudden, one of them called me back and said, we have an internship, which was actually at the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. And so I spent, 3 years there, and then got recruited to the city of Chandler, where Intel has a major fabrication facility there. And then 2 years later, the new CEO for the Greater Phoenix Economic Council reached out and said, I'm building my team. Do you want to come back? And so I was there from 14 to 21.
Nice. Okay. Well, so you really kind of got around and, kind of fell into it, seemed like, right?
Absolutely.
Because of the market conditions, right?
Exactly.
So you've seen a lot of growth there and kind of seen a lot of the landscape. So just curious, let's talk about Tampa.
Sure.
What do you think makes Tampa such a great market for businesses, and why are so many businesses coming here?
Well, first, it's the tax climate. I mean, it's there's no personal income tax, which is great. This is new to me, so not having to file any type of state income tax, you just don't do it, which is really interesting, and it's a great savings. In addition, we have so many people moving here. The statistic is something like 1,200 people per day moving to Florida.
Wow. Yeah,
and then we've got about 140-ish. Moving to the Tampa MSA on a daily basis. So we're adding
every day
52,000 people in the last 12 months.
That's a lot of people.
It is. And when companies are looking to expand or relocate their business, the biggest factor is really workforce. It's, how are we going to get the people that we need for our phase one so that we can become profitable sooner or as soon as possible. And then from there, if we're going to grow to, another 100 people or 1,000 people, whatever that number is, how are we going to do that? And so, the people story of that is really driving, I think, what our success has been in the market. And then, success breeds success. So, as
Right.
more people come, more businesses are looking at our market, and it's just a matter of just keeping up with the growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's fantastic. So really, what I'm hearing is, one of the things with Tampa is just that we have such a great workforce here, and that for companies, it's easy to find great employees here, and there's a great environment for that.
Exactly.
That's awesome. So just curious, kind of with the economic development Tampa Bay there on the council, are there any projects or kind of recent things that you worked on that maybe you're proud of that you could share with the listeners?
Yeah, so we keep all of our projects confidential. So anything that's in the pipeline right now, I can't really talk about. I do have a project that should announce next week that one of my colleagues has been a running point on. It's a cybersecurity firm out of the country. So they're going to be it's going to be foreign direct investment to the Tampa market into the U.S.
Very cool.
A couple of other projects, MUFG, so Mitsubishi Financial Group. They announced they're hiring 500 people, took down 80,000 square feet of office space near the airport. And then there's another group called Cybex that opened up a facility in actually at Sky Center 1, the new office building at the airport. And they're hiring, a couple hundred people, if I'm not mistaken. So really, really cool. A lot of our activity has really been around the cybersecurity space and the IT space.
Awesome. Yeah. So you just mentioned kind of office space, right? How big of an impact does that still play? I heard a recent story, I think it was in St. Louis, you might have heard of this, where it was an office building was sold for 98% less than just a couple years ago. It was downtown St. Louis, and because companies are moving and going online and hybrid and everything. Just curious, how does that play into everything?
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing is that the hybrid model is probably here to stay. Obviously, working conditions and economic conditions may change that. But a lot of our employers, what we're hearing, are going in, having their employees go in 3 to 4 days a week, doing the 2 days off, 3 days in, or 4 days in, 1 day off. And that is kind of changing the landscape. As far as building value.
You still need office space for that, right?
Yeah.
That hybrid model, yeah.
Yeah. So what a lot of folks are doing is they're converting or leasing space that is much newer and that provides the ability for those employees to work together in a collaborative manner. So it's we space versus me space. So when you go into your office and it's just my office and I'm trying to do my work head down, a lot of it is, how do we collaborate when people are in and then let them do their work when they're at home?
I love that. So not just cubicle city anymore, right? We're moving out of office space, right, into something where everybody can kind of work together there. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, and then that's really the main goal, I think, of trying to bring people into the office is, you want the interaction, you want the ideation to take place amongst people. It's that water cooler talk. Hey, I've thought about this. I was thinking about your problem the other day, what about this? And that's what really kind of creates that energy or that synergy of innovating and tackling new problems.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I'm obviously an old geezer here, so I've been working for a long time, pre-COVID, kind of hybrid and everything. And, for us, it was a big deal when you would get 1 day to work from home, right? Like on Fridays, and you could just get so much work done and be focused, but then the rest of the time, it's great to collaborate with a team. So, I'm glad that that's really hitting mainstream now where, you're from home, you're working at home, you have your projects, you can knock them out. And then if you have questions or need something else, you're, in the office and can kind of work on bigger picture things there.
Yeah. One thing that we're hearing from employees is that, the biggest deterrent for them coming back in the office is drive times.
Sure.
It's too far away. Gas has gotten more expensive recently. And so that's the one deterrent, or they simply just move to another state like Tampa and their business is headquartered in, Chicago or New York or wherever it might be. So
interesting. Very cool. Well, hey, thanks for sharing all that.
Sure.
Would love to move on to what we call the Barrels of Wisdom section. And my personal favorite question, and I understand a lot of listeners' favorite questions, the name of the podcast, right? So Mitch, just going to ask you, what is the last thing in your search bar?
Last thing was the progress of my passport. So the status of my passport. So I've got a big one. Yeah, I've got a trip coming up in June for work. I'm going to a tech conference in Toronto, and then we're taking a group of folks in September to Vancouver. So all Canadian based, but trying to get just make sure that comes in on time, and I just keep checking every day religiously.
Any updates? How's it looking? Are you on schedule?
It says in progress. So we'll see.
Yeah. So I had a similar situation last year where I was also traveling to Canada and for my own fault, own doing, I just waited too long to actually get all the paper because it's a process, right? It's a lot of paperwork to kind of fill out. And so I procrastinated, got it in at the nick of time. And they actually have a hotline you can call and kind of get the status there. And I was able to expedite it and got it like right before I had to travel. So hopefully that doesn't happen to you.
Well, I've got 6 weeks, so it should be okay. Yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yep, absolutely. And if you need any advice on how to expedite it, let me know.
All right.
I'll help you out with that. Let's talk about leadership, right? So I think it's so important, kind of your position as an SVP there. Just curious with your leadership style, and what have you found be most impactful kind of to your team's success?
Yeah, so as far as like my leadership style, I would say I focus to be on a servant leader, making sure that I'm always helping my employees, giving them the time that they need. I meet with my employees at least for 30 minutes, or at least that's on the calendar once a week. If it lasts 5 minutes, great. If it lasts all 30 or we need to have another meeting, great. I'm really there to support them and make sure that they have all the resources that they need. And then I kind of guide the vision of where we need to go, over the next year or 2 or 3 or whatever the case may be. What I've found to be successful is, can't micromanage. Everybody hates that. And if you're having to micromanage, that's probably not a good thing, or your employee is probably not the right fit. And when that happens, obviously you got to kind of work it out. I give my team the ability to really do their work, function, and my saying is, family first. So if something comes up, deal with it. You need to be happy at home in order to be happy at work. Because there's always going to be an overlap, and when you're spending a third of your life with your coworkers, it's a lot, and you want to be sure that those people are happy and they're kind people, and there's no drama or you're at least identifying that and squashing that if anything does come up, if there's tension between certain employees. So
Nice. Yeah. I mean, I think those are, three fantastic things, right? Kind of having calendar integrity, right? Kind of putting that time aside with an employee or with your staff to make sure that they can get in front of you, right? I think that's fantastic. Family first, couldn't agree more. So important, right? Because it's so true. Like if something's going on and, like, hey, I got to take someone to the hospital or I got to take care of this and you're not able to do that, that's going to impact your work life, right? And we don't live in that world anymore, luckily, right?
Yeah.
Where you have to worry about that there. And what was the third thing you said again? Forget now. So it was putting time aside, family first.
Not micromanaging. It's really just like kind of creating a culture that people, enjoy working there. That's kind of my whole motto is, you need to be happy at work, I think. And if you're not, I want to either try to help you find whatever the next thing is for you or find a way that we can, work together in a more productive way. So
I love that. Yeah, I'm very similar to that. I always tell everyone I'm your biggest cheerleader, right? And if that's not here, I will help you find wherever's a better fit there. I will help, whatever you need there, recommendation, and give you the time to kind of find that success that you need or that place you need to be successful.
Well, exactly. I mean, I've had bosses before who didn't feel like they were looking out for me, and I realized like that's not what I want for my employees, and so just focusing on them.
That's good for you. I think that's fantastic. That you identified that and now you're passing that on to others is awesome, Mitch. So let's talk about kind of companies here in Tampa and using kind of your economic development hat a little bit. Just kind of curious, what can, and you've seen a lot of businesses, obviously, right? You've been doing this for a while. So is there any kind of commonalities that you see or kind of things in companies that you can identify that you really think that makes them successful in the long term, right? They're not just a fly by the night operation, but like, hey man, these guys got it down. I know they're gonna be successful for the long term.
Yeah, so it's a couple things. It's workforce. I mentioned before is a main driver. Can you get the people that you need to make whatever you're making or produce or create revenue? Whatever your model is, right? So if it's people first, it's creating that culture within the organization and making sure that everyone has the same alignment on what that vision is, what the vision is for the organization, what the mission is of the organization. There's a whole cohort of young people, entering the workforce that want, that the ability to know that they're working for something greater than themselves. And I think, making sure that, you've set the correct vision as a leader within an organization or as a CEO or as an owner, so that your employees understand, what the main goal is, and then creating an atmosphere that is collaborative and allows people to really shine.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic, right? Because it starts at the top, right? It's from the top down. People need to buy into the vision, into the goals of the company, and then just creating that culture that, coming back to your leadership style where everyone's happy.
Well, and creating that vision, one of the things that I've learned is I have to communicate it early and often. And then sometimes, you're doing it 6, 7, 8 times, a month. You're making sure that people understand what your goals are and what your vision is for the organization.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. It's fantastic. Let's move on to the perfect pour here. A lot of guests kind of stumble through this. So we make sure that we talked about this ahead of time. And sent you the Mad Libs, aka fill in the blank story to help create your wine label for you. And here's what you came up with.
Yeah, so my wine label would be Grape Impact. It's kind of a play on great impact. I think, if you're in economic development, you have a passion for impacting your community in a positive way and seeing it grow. So I went with Grape Impact. I'm not sure if some of my colleagues think it's funny or good, but
I love a good pun, and that is a great pun. So the bottle, right? What are those 2 ingredients that make up this Grape Impact?
For me, if I'm talking about my employees, it's intellect and curiosity, and making sure that you have the intellectual curiosity to continue to want to learn. I mean, I think that's if you're stagnant, you're probably failing, and you need to continue to kind of push yourself and try new things and try to understand when a problem comes up that, how to fix it. So
no, I love that. So who is this Grape Impact blend? Who's it best for?
Community members and who want to make a difference. I think the biggest thing is that I've learned about Tampa is that you can make a difference on day one. People are willing, as long as you're willing to put the time and energy into it, people are willing to extend an offer and say, hey, yeah, come join this organization or come join this event with me. I think that's super important for any community because it's not like that everywhere.
Right.
Being that I've had an opportunity to live in a few places and I travel extensively for work internationally and domestically, you can tell that there are some communities that are very closed doors.
Interesting. So you find Tampa, and I think this is a great perspective, right? Because you've been a lot of different places, is more welcoming than other communities.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the South where everyone waves at you while you walk down the street, but it's definitely a community that will welcome you from a business perspective and from a personal perspective. And if you ask for help, no one has turned me down, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I just want to dive into those two ingredients a little bit more, right? So you talked about intellect and curiosity, right? So I've heard those phrases before. If you could just, and I know you kind of talked about, just dive into that a little bit more, of why you think those are so important.
Yeah, I mean, I think one, you should always have a curiosity. I mean, if you think you're done learning, you're probably not, and you're not expanding your mind, and you're not growing as a professional or personally. I think there's always growth in what you should be focused on, and that kind of brings that intellectual aspect into it. I mean, the more you're curious, the more you're willing to potentially change and have more self-awareness. So
I think that's great. So we've been talking about wine. We got wine on the table here, which is yours, by the way, to keep, right? As a podcast host, it's a very limited edition bottle of wine here with our unique one-of-a-kind label here, really. But let's talk more. So that made me kind of think about venues around Tampa Bay, right? Do you think there's maybe any great venues that you want to recommend to our listeners or our watchers at home that you think they should really check out?
Wine related or food related, or
take it however you want to.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about wine because it's in front of me, right?
Yeah,
so it could be wine, it could be food. What would you recommend? Is there any hot spots you think people should check out?
Yeah, so I stumbled across Restaurant BT, and it's a French Vietnamese restaurant. It is phenomenal. Definitely check that out. I mean, and then the other classics, Roca's.
Where's BT at? Let's talk about that.
Oh, you're asking the wrong. I need to Google map everything because I'm still fairly new.
But that's an interesting fusion. So you said French Vietnamese.
Yes.
Ooh, got me hungry. So I made banh mi, which is Vietnamese, like hurls the other week. And of course, not super authentic, but very delicious. So it's interesting to kind of hear that the fusion there with the French, because that's obviously a big influence on Vietnamese cuisine.
Yeah, so it's MacDill and Beta Bay.
Okay, so right in South Tampa there. Okay. And are they fairly new? Has it been around for a while?
I feel like they've been around for a while, and then they just expanded into kind of a larger space in the same area. So, and it's got a really cute outdoor area as well. Nice. So if you can get there before it gets hot.
Right, exactly. That's the major key, right? So right now it's still nice.
Yeah.
Now it's the time to do that. And then you were going to mention some other places as well.
The traditional Roca, I think, is amazing. The tableside mozzarella, if you haven't tried it, it's phenomenal. They also have a great selection of wine there. Noble Rices, I think, is one of my favorites as well. Great, just sushi and food in general. So
nice. Well, hey, thanks for sharing those. And also, Mitch, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Cheers to everyone at home. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Search Bar. You can connect with Mitch Allen and with me on LinkedIn. Follow us on our journeys. We'll add all the links into the show notes, including the addresses and the websites for the venues that we recommended and anything else here for the podcast. And of course, if you have any SEO or digital marketing questions, feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn as the CEO of Digital Neighbor. You can probably tell I love talking about this topic. We hope we filled your glass with digital wisdom for you as a leader, as an owner here. And we're looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Search Bar. Mitch, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thanks, Eric.